Hello, everyone. Today's chess puzzle. Okay, let's set up the board. White has a knight on c5, pawns on f4, a2, c2, g2, and h2. There's a bishop on e3, rooks on b1 and d1, and the king is on g1.
Right. And for black, rooks on a8 and h8, a knight back on b8, bishops on c8 and f8. The pawns are on a7, c6, h7, a6, f6, g5, and e4, and the black king is on c7.
Okay, got it. And it's white to move. Let's get this going.
All right, so first look, that white knight on c5, it's definitely active. Controls b7 and d7, looking towards black's back rank, and e6, which is, quite close to the king.
Yeah, and the bishop on e3 is sort of aiming that way, too, towards c7, even though the square is occupied for now.
Exactly. And don't forget the rooks, b1 and d1. They control their files, waiting.
What about black? That king on c7 feels a bit airy, maybe exposed, especially with the c5 knight nearby.
It does seem a little vulnerable. Black's knight is passive on b8. The bishops aren't doing a whole lot immediately either. That pawn on e4 maybe a bit weak.
Okay, so potential moves for white. What jumps out? You mentioned the rook on b1.
Yeah, the b file. What if? What if we look at moving the rook, say, rb1 to b7? That directly hits the bishop on c8.
Hits the bishop. Okay, so black can't just ignore that.
Not really. I mean, the most logical response seems to be taking the rook. Bishop c8 takes b7. It's a sacrifice from white, clearly.
Right, a rook sacrifice. Okay, so bishop takes rook on b7. Then what? Why give up the rook?
Well, now things get interesting. Remember that knight on c5? With the bishop now on b7, the e6 square is free for the knight. So knight c5 to e6.
And c5 to e6. And that's check, right? Direct check on the king.
Exactly, it's check. And crucially, it also attacks the bishop that just took the rook on b7.
A fork. Classic knight fork. Okay, so the king's in check. The bishop's attacked. The king has to move.
It has to move. Where can it go? Looking at the board, b6 is covered by the knight, b7 is occupied and attacked, b8 is occupied, d8 is possible, d7 is covered by the knight, d6 is possible. But c8 looks like the most natural retreat square.
Okay, let's say king moves c7 to c8. Gets out of check. But white is down a rook. What was the point?
Now look at the other rook, the one on d1.
Ah, right, the d file.
The d file is open. Black's king just stepped onto c8.
So rook d1 moves to d8.
Rook d1 to d8, and what does that do?
That covers d7, attacks the king on c8. The king can't go to b7 because of the knight, can't go to b8 because of the knight.
And go to d8 because of the rook.
Checkmate. Wow.
Checkmate, yes. The initial rook sacrifice just pulled the bishop away and then allowed the knight check to force the king onto the fatal square.
Brilliant. So it all hinges on that first move, rb7. Okay, let's recap the sequence. The answer is rb1, rb7.
Black has to play bc8 takes b7.
Then white plays the check, nc5, nest6, plus g8 in.
Black king forced to kc7, kc8.
And the final move, rd1, rd8, checkmate.
There you go. A nice little combination.
Excellent breakdown. Thank you for listening.